The year was 1973, and the world had just been introduced to the $6 million man, Colonel Steve Austin, a man barely alive. He was an astronaut so severely injured in a NASA test flight that there was only one way to save his life. They had to rebuild him. And with that introduction, the world fell in love with the bionic man. Children pretended to be bionic, always in slow motion and with sound effects. Stores sold out of red zipper front tracksuits, and if you could raise your eyebrow like Lee Majors, the actor playing Steve Austin, you were a god. Everyone wanted to know everything about him. How fast could he run? 60 miles an hour. How far could he see? 20-to-1 zoom vision. Well, how strong was he? Strong as a bulldozer. And it was the 70s, so of course we wanted to know what was his sign. Technically, this was his sign. Steve Austin was a man with multiple disabilities. He was a triple amputee. He was missing an eye. He was legally, officially, and technically disabled. He could legitimately hang one of these signs and get front row parking without fear of getting a ticket. But no one would know that because when his doctors rebuilt him, they turned his visible disabilities into invisible disabilities. The bionic man had an invisible disability, and so do I. I can't smell. I've never been able to smell. I have a permanent sensorial disability that affects my daily life. I have congenital anosmia, and no one would know that this is my sign too. And here's the problem with this sign. This is the universal symbol for a person who is handicapped, and it implies that people should have a visible disability and mobility issues. This sign is an oversimplification of the people it is meant to represent and an outdated use of the pejorative word handicapped. According to Visibility 93, 93% of people with disabilities don't use a wheelchair, even though the universal symbol identifying this group is a person in a wheelchair. The problem with this symbol is that it's meant to represent a wide group of people with a wide assortment of disabilities, but it has instead created widespread discrimination against those with invisible disabilities, creating a perception that a disability has to be visible and affect your mobility for it to be valid. In my community, the community of anosmics, you'll hear people reject their disability by saying, I don't consider myself to be disabled. I'm not in a wheelchair. Or, oh, I wouldn't feel right saying I have a disability when I can see and walk and hear. Oh, and this is my favorite. It's not like I need any help in my daily life. My disability doesn't affect me. Well, unless there's a fire or gas leak or chemical exposure or I eat spoiled food. I just need help with those things. So, aside from those everyday life and death situations, aside from things that can kill you, your disability shouldn't count as a disability because you're not as disabled as a person with a visible disability? Saying you have a disability doesn't mean you're claiming to be disabled. It simply means you need help. And it doesn't mean that you have to look like this. Do any of you have a disability? If you can't see without glasses, you have a disability. So, should this be your sign? Lucky you, they make vision aids to help you move easily throughout your life, making your disability invisible. You just end up looking cool with fancy glasses. But if the world didn't have those aids to help you see, you would need help maneuvering within your daily life. But your disability wouldn't make you disabled. It simply means you would need help. I spent the better part of last year getting an official congenital anosmic diagnosis because First of all, acquired anosmia is a diagnostic COVID symptom, and I didn't want to be discriminated against and have authorities block my entrance because of my inability to smell. And second, with an official diagnosis, I qualified for an access pass into the national parks, allowing me free and discounted entrance fees. It's a hidden perk to having a sensorial disability. And with that one simple action, I erupted a gigantic anger volcano within the anosmic community that rivaled the decimation of Pompeii. When I became visible and claimed my invisible disability, it made people think I was saying I was disabled and that I was trying to take services away from people with mobility challenges. What I was doing was claiming my right to my disability, not claiming that I was disabled. I was simply acknowledging my invisible disability and asking to be seen by showing that having a disability doesn't have to look any one particular way. This sign is a generalization, and no sign should exclude you from consideration or membership just because you don't look like its symbol. Representation matters. A teacher in the White House is just as much of a doctor as a doctor in a hospital, and a bionic man has just as much claim to his disability as the little girl who can't smell that her house is on fire. When you claim your sign, you become visible.